whether you're from South America to India to, Southeast Asia to the US. There are dozens of visas, and that list grows every year that you're probably going to be eligible for, assuming that you have moderately okay income, because that's kind of the thing that they're targeting. Is they don't want people to come and be a drain on the economy. They want to kind of benefit. So kind of long-term tourism is what they're kind of eyeing. If I could give any advice, and I think that this is more difficult for some people than others. For me, it's quite easy. It's be flexible in where you want to go and kind of let the visas that you're eligible for dictate where you're going to go. Like, I wouldn't have gone to Australia if I couldn't have gotten a visa. I wouldn't be living now in Spain if I couldn't get a visa.
That is today's guest, Tim Marting from Citizen Remote. And yeah, you might hear I have a little bit of a cold, but you know what? The show goes on here at the Zero to Travel podcast. Now, you might be wondering, why should I listen to this episode? Why not just Google a list of visas I can read on the internet and get this all? Well, I'll tell you why. There's a lot of nuance to this conversation. Tim is a professional. He has his finger on the pulse of the visa world because that's what they do over at Citizen Remote. They help people achieve their remote work dreams. One of those ways is by providing legal services to help you secure visas around the world, including for the visas you're going to hear about today, which Tim does an incredible job of breaking down into short-term, medium-term, and long-term visas, and also up-and-coming visas. And these visas we're going to talk about cover a lot of ground, everything from no tax obligation countries to countries that allow for a longer stay. And on top of all that, this is about a lifestyle question, isn't it? And that's where we're going deeper. You're not just going to get a list of visas here. We're going to talk about some of the different mindsets that you can use to approach the question of where to go. Tim also has lived abroad in 3 different countries. He's actually on his 4th now. He just moved to Iceland pretty recently. He shares his best advice for getting settled in a new country and feeling at home fast. If you should apply for more than one visa at a time in case you get rejected. That's a question many people have. How to think about where you might want to go and why. And he had just traveled around Scandinavia for about 2.5 months at the time of this recording. So I get his best advice for traveling in this part of the world where I'm based. And it's really a lot of actionable advice around specific destinations, but also opening up your mind to the idea of leveraging these visas for a short or longer move abroad, and even a path to citizenship. All of that and much more happening in this episode right now. So buckle up, strap in. Thanks for being here, and welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend.
You're listening to the Zero to Travel podcast, where we explore exciting travel-based work, lifestyle, and business opportunities, helping you to achieve your wildest travel dreams. And now your host, world wanderer and travel junkie, Jason Moore.
Hey, it's Jason here with ZeroToTravel.com. Welcome to the show, my friend. Thanks for hanging out, letting me bring a little travel into your ears today. This is a show to help you travel the world on your terms, to fill your life with as much travel as you desire, no matter what your situation or experience. Thankfully, when I recorded the interview with Tim, I didn't have a cold. So you're not going to have to hear this scratchy voice the whole time. But hey, we're getting through it here. And I want to thank you for being a part of this listening community and for spending time here with me today. As you heard at the top, all the stuff coming your way. It's an incredible episode to kick off Travel Trends Month. I want to spend this month trying to get you ahead of some of the trends that I see for the next coming year, and also some of the trends that professionals in their various industries see. And this is a great example of that. Tim Marting, our guest today, the co-founder of Citizen Remote, which, by the way, check him out at citizenremote.com. This guy lives and breathes visas all day. That's their core offering, is helping people get visas around the world so they can work remotely, stay long-term, stay medium-term, short-term, all the stuff we talked about at the top. And so I thought he was the perfect one to tap. Not only that, he has that personal experience being nomadic, living abroad in different countries, working remotely. So he brings all of that to the table. It's a great one to kick off this month. I hope you enjoy it. Don't forget, by the way, if you want to stay on top of travel trends, get other helpful links, destination recommendations, and more, sign up for our free newsletter over at zerototravel.com/newsletter if you haven't joined the community over there. sign up so we can keep in touch off the podcast as well. And I want to share a shout out on the back end of this interview. If you're thinking about taking a career break or switching life up a bit to travel more or even live abroad, maybe it's this episode that really gets you fired up. The story I'm going to share at the end on the backside after the interview might help that flame of a dream burn a little bit brighter. So I want to share that, and I'll wrap it all up with a wonderful quote to send you off on your day. It's a lot of good stuff. Stick around for that. In the meantime, please enjoy my conversation with Tim Marting from Citizen Remote. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the other side, my friend. Cheers. Tim Marting, welcome back to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend. Tim from Citizen Remote. How you doing today, buddy?
Dude, amazing. I was really excited. I know we've been trying to get this going for a while, so I was pumped when you reached out.
Yeah, well, we had you on the show before. We can link up to that if people want to hear your full backstory. We'll get into some updates today. I mean, last time we hung out, we had the pleasure of hanging out in person, so you came through Oslo, and what do we do? I mean, this is what I do when people come through town. Let people know.
Dude, so I mean, we went to the sauna, the sauna in fjord kind of
the Oslo
deal.
fjord.
Oh my god, it was amazing. Like, it made me want to move to like Michigan and start something, or I'm about to be in Iceland, which we can talk about, and I'm like, hopefully they don't have it, which they definitely will. But like, I want to open that and own one day because it was just amazing, like so refreshing.
Yeah, there's something calming and relaxing about getting super hot and then jumping in freezing cold water and coming back out. And then you got the way these saunas are designed, because where we went is called Sukkerbiten. It's called Sugar Bite, and like that's the direct translation. And so it's a small pier with like a ring of saunas that are all individually designed. So they all have their own look and feel, and they're facing out on the fjord. You can jump off the roof of one of them. We did that. And man, it's just so cool. And then, you know, it's kind of go in the sauna and talk a little bit about whatever, life, work stuff. It's just, you can't beat it. And then you demolish me in ping pong, which is annoying.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. We don't have to bring that up.
Yeah. Anyway, we're not here to talk about our shenanigans in Oslo, although it sounds like you did have a proper night out, because I texted you. Then after I saw you off, it was like Saturday night, and I went home at whatever time. Maybe it was like 10. I was like, all right, if you're going to have a proper night, go to this neighborhood. And then I didn't hear from you. And then you texted me back at like 6 p.m. You're like, oh, I just woke up. Is this, if that tells you anything? So,
yeah, it was a good night though. Good insights.
What did you think of the Norwegians?
Oh, honestly, they were really nice. I ended up meeting a few of them, and they like invited me to an after party and all that stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, like, people say, obviously the stereotype is that they're kind of closed off and, you know, not as open as, you know, Italy or Spain or something like that. And I didn't get that at all. And I took like a Scandinavian trip. So, you know, Denmark to Norway, Sweden, Finland, and the entire Estonia as well. And every place I went to, the friendliest, nicest people, went out and met big groups. And yeah, it was a blast, and I enjoyed it.
I kind of forgot you did that whole whirlwind tour. I don't know if it was a whirlwind tour. Was it a month, or how long were you traveling around Scandinavia?
It was like 2.5 months.
Yeah. Okay. That's a proper trip. I mean, but it's so expensive. That's always the first objection. What was your experience with that? What was your best advice for traveling around Scandinavia for an extended period of time?
Yeah, it's definitely expensive. So prepare to spend like, I think like what in Norway is like 11 euro equivalent to a beer. So definitely expensive. But other than that, like, I actually did the hostel life, which I think I'm kind of old for now, to be honest. Like, I would go in.
Wait, how old are you?
And I'd see like I'm 30.
Come on. You're not too old. Nobody.
So, but I mean, seriously, like, there needs to be a middle ground between, like, you know, like the young crew and then an older one, which I'd find some. Like, some hostels were kind of geared towards that, you know, more remote work. Because like I would work too. Like, I was 2.5 months. I wasn't just on vacation. I was working every day. So when I would wake up, like, some places didn't have like a place, like a, an office atmosphere. It was just like a kitchen that I have to set up in, or the rooms were loud. And so like there's a opportunity, I guess, for a middle ground there. But when I'd wake up and, I was like, how old are you? You're like 15. They're like, no, I'm 18. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, but it's just, it's a different vibe, and they kind of want to do different things, which, it's great. When I was, young and traveling, it was a blast. So nothing bad on them. But yeah, when you're 30 and working full time, it's, you have a different vibe than the one just traveling full time. So, but other than that, yeah, I thought the hostels were amazing. Mostly like, when it comes to the vibe that you're looking for. If you want to go party and stuff like that, I think that there's really nice hostels up there in Scandinavia, and I absolutely loved it so much so that I decided to move to Iceland. So the one I didn't check off the bucket list. So.
Okay. On the hostel tip, I always encourage people on the show. I think they are a great places to stay. Of course, it depends on, the different styles of hostel. You got like more party hostels and things like that. But I'm not saying I disagree with you, but I hear what you're saying. But also, I think it's at any age, it can be a wonderful experience to stay at a hostel. You can always get private rooms. You don't have to stay in the dorms. But also, I understand the challenge of working remotely while you're doing this, which is of course, a whole different ball game than if you're just traveling and you have the whole day free to sightsee or do whatever you want, and you're on full holiday. So, yeah, if you're cutting down on alcohol, then you're saving a ton of money in Scandinavia, of course, and you saving on accommodations by staying in hostels. That's your number one tip, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess one more thing to add to that is like I had a blast in everywhere I went. I'm decently good at making friends, and so like it was very good, and I met a lot of great people. So it's, again, nothing bad on hostels, but yeah, I mean, it was just, if you're working full time, you just got to choose and pick carefully. But yeah, I guess, in terms of tips, that's probably a good way to do it. I was on the Eurorail pass as well, so that was nice and fun.
Which one did you get?
What is the one when you're a resident here? There's two, but I got like the 2 month or whatever pass, or 3 month pass is what it was. And I had unlimited goes, so I could just hop around. But I think, just be aware that Scandinavia is pretty big, so everything's pretty spread out. So just be prepared that, like, because I wanted to go to Bergen. Is that what it's called? Mm-hmm. Yeah, in Norway, but I never ended up making it because it was like an extra day. It was going to be 2 extra days to the trip, and I didn't realize that's how far it was. I thought it was like, I looked on the map and I'm like, oh, that's probably like a 2-hour trip, and it was like 8 hours. I was like, oh, so I guess be aware of that and the travel time.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So I thought that was really cool that you did that. I haven't talked to a lot of people that spent an extended amount of time purely in Scandinavia, just kind of, concentrating there. And because I think it's an area that people get scared away from because of the costs, or maybe there are costs, but some of them may be perceived costs. It really depends on how you travel. I agree. It's a wonderful place to travel around. And so much so, as you mentioned, that you're moving to Iceland. And this is part of your story. We're going to talk about 2025, the next coming year, some of the digital nomad visas, or just visas in general that you think may be good for remote workers. Of course, at Citizen Remote, you guys are working on building a remote future. So you're trying to provide services you are providing services that help people do everything from secure visas, help them with taxes and things like that. That's why I wanted to have you on for this, because you're sort of at the forefront of, you're providing these visa services, which, by the way, we'll include a link in the show notes if you guys want. I think we might have a discount with you guys or something. I'm not sure, but we can link up to that if anybody needs help with visas. I mean, you use your own company to get your Iceland visa, so you can talk about the process in a little bit. But I mean, professionally speaking, it's your job to stay on top of visas and these things. You're not just like, the random travel blogger that's like, oh, I'm going to do a roundup of the best digital nomad visas. This is the core of your company. So yes, I just wanted to emphasize that, because this is coming from somebody who really has their finger on the pulse of what's happening in the visa world. And one more thing I want to add before we get into the list, Tim, I think that, a lot of these visas may be geared towards U.S. citizens, but the fact that countries are opening up their borders and they want remote workers or nomads or people to stay longer term. Relatively new trend in a way. And I think that people from other countries outside of the US, they should pay attention to, because if you can look into these visas and see if they're open for you. And also it just goes to show that these are countries that are forward thinking. They want to bring these type of people in. So there may be a visa for you from this country, some of the countries we're going to talk about today, that you don't hear about today. So maybe this will give you some ideas of, okay, if these countries are opening up, they may be opening up for me as well, depending on where you're listening to this. So I just wanted to preface the whole conversation with that. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely not just for U.S. citizens or U.K. citizens. I mean, it's for the world. You just have to make sure, obviously, that you're eligible. And the cool thing about Citizen Remote is we actually have a quiz. So if you are curious on what visas you can qualify for, you can just take our quiz. Input your country, how much you make, what kind of job you have, if it's your own company or not. A few other, bits, and then we'll spit out a bunch of places that you're eligible to relocate to. And then you can kind of take next steps from there, on your own or with us. So, I mean, but 100%, there are, whether you're from South America to India to, Southeast Asia to the US, there are dozens of visas, and that list grows every year, that you're probably going to be eligible for, assuming that you have, moderately okay income, because that's kind of the thing that they're targeting. Is they don't want people to come and be a drain on the economy. They want to kind of benefit. So kind of long-term tourism is what they're kind of eyeing, and that blossom from COVID.
Yeah. Okay. So don't worry, it's not just going to be a dry bureaucratic conversation, because we're going to talk about the lifestyle in some of these places and some other things throughout, I'm sure. So Tim, I think you have brought 7. Am I mistaken? What do you have?
I don't know. I think I at least have 7. I don't know how much. I didn't know that there was an exact number on it, but yeah, I mean, I can happy to dive in if you're ready, and we can kind of go from there.
Let's do your top 7, let's say. Okay. And then we can, and for whatever reasons, I mean, some of this, of course, will be subjective, but again, like I said, you have your finger on the pulse of this. So I'd love to hear your rationale behind why you chose to share these ones. And then we can throw in some sort of bonus recommendations and things like that. Fair enough?
Yeah, fair enough. I'll just try to cut out. So just let me know when I've gotten 7. I'll do the top 1 of each category, because I kind of broke them down into categories.
Oh, okay. It doesn't have to be 7. If you have... Here, we should have talked about this beforehand.
Yeah.
We're figuring it out as we go, folks. It's a totally transparent show here. Why don't you lay one of the categories on us now? Yeah, we'll see where we land in terms of numbers at the end, okay?
Yeah, not a problem. So I guess one thing to know, obviously, I'm not a lawyer, so that's a preface. I do have my finger on the pulse, though, as you said. Like, I have conversations. I've built out our lawyer network. I have meetings with our legal teams in each country, weekly. So, in terms of my knowledge and stuff, I'm there, but I'm just not a lawyer. So I just want to make that clear. So otherwise, one of the categories would be upcoming DNVs. And I know that was kind of the preface of this is, 2025 digital nomad visas, DNVs. I might say that interchangeably. And I think 2 really exciting ones coming up is South Africa, which actually you can start applying for today, and Thailand. And that's not available yet, but that is going to be a new one. And I'm kind of excited about those 2 specifically, just because the digital nomad aura of those 2 countries is already pretty pronounced. People, especially Thailand, I think is one of the biggest ones outside of like maybe Bali. You always hear in the Southeast Asia area. So I think that one will be huge. There's still a lot to kind of come out with it, so we can't really dive into the details of it, but it is going to be more geared towards, what a traditional digital nomad visa is. You're making probably $3,000 to $5,000 a month. You have a remote job and your company is going to allow you to relocate. So that'll be kind of nice there. I think it's 6 months, it's extendable up to 12 months, and then you can reapply if you're eligible.
Are you talking about South Africa or Thailand?
Thailand.
Okay.
Thailand.
Yep.
Okay. And South Africa, I believe that's like a 5K, 55K a year, 55,000 USD a year, and you're eligible. It gives you 3 years, which is kind of unique. Like, it gives you 3 years right off the bat. That's not one that's kind of traditional. Digital nomad visas, typically they're like 12 months. So that's nice. And then you don't have to register for tax for 6 months, but there's a whole lot that you can dive into from that.
Okay. All right. I mean, that paints a good picture. I think, one thing I want to pull out is, of course, it may seem obvious on the surface, but for some people listening that are new to these DNVs or digital nomad visas or remote work visas, whatever countries brand them and call them, when you're dropping the dollar amounts, you're saying these are the income requirements to get the visa. And then the length of time, of course, that you can stay on the visa. And that's what the big distinction is between like you showing up as a tourist and getting to stay for a month or 2 months or 3 months, depending on where you're from and where you're going, versus 3 years or 12 months. And so this conversation is meant to get you excited about some of these opportunities. Like I had no idea there was a 3-year visa and $55K a year. So somebody's listening, maybe they don't have a remote job now, but maybe that helps kind of build the parameters for them to go on their search. Be like, okay, I want to move to South Africa for 3 years. I need to make at least 55,000 USD a year, and I'm going to go for this visa. And it just, any conversation like this can change your future decision making, because that's the goal of this episode. Really, we're going to get into some of the details like we have, but it's to help you open your mind. And just kind of let yourself dream a little bit and think about where you might land with a current job or a future job. That was kind of the intention for me behind this whole episode. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
100%. Like I'm excited for the rise of these digital nomad visas, just because it awards people the availability to kind of relocate long term. And as a U.S. citizen, as you probably know, you did a working holiday early on in your life as well, right?
No, I never did it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, for anyone who might not know, there is something called a working holiday visa, and it pretty much allows recent graduates, or I think you have to be under 30 to relocate. For the U.S., you only have about 5 countries. I think it's like South Korea, Ireland, and those are just after you graduate. And then you got New Zealand and Australia, and there might be one more that I'm missing. And so those were nice because you could relocate, get a job somewhere, move there for longer than 3 months. Typically, it's at least 12 months. I think Australia you could extend to like 3 years as well. And so you could go there, set your life up, and kind of get ingrained in another country and like live there. If you're from the UK, you have like way more. Australia has like the whole world they can do that with. And so these DNVs allow kind of that same opportunity to what the U.S. citizen was restricted from, and anyone else, obviously, to relocate for the long term. You have to have a job first, though. It's not something that you can go and relocate to Spain or Portugal and then get a job in that country. You already have to have a job, but it allows you to get, a bank account, accommodation, legally stay there. You have to file for taxes and stuff like that for most of these visas. And so it really allows you to go and understand another culture and live there and appreciate, life abroad and outside of your country. So that's why I'm so excited for these. And, I think that's why I initially started, Citizen Remote with Peter.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think the age thing that you mentioned, because these are opening up and it's getting bigger and bigger, you're not restricted. Somebody listening to this that's over the age of 30, it just used to be that was one of the only ways to do it. Right. It was very difficult to get a lot of these visas. Now, because countries want to attract dollars, as you mentioned, it's just opening up so many opportunities for people. And I think the job first thing, there's 2 ways to look at that. I mean, you could look at that as, oh, darn, I need to get a job first. But actually, I see that as a positive, because that's one of the big worries people always have going into, oh, how am I going to make this sustainable? How am I going to earn a living? But if you're coming with the job, it's already in place. It's one less thing to worry about. I think it allows you to relax and enjoy the country a little more. Of course, some of these things, there are considerations like time zones, and are you going to go to Thailand and then have to get on Zoom meetings in the USA at 1 a.m. or whatever? That might not be something you want to do. Know thyself. You have to kind of look at your situation and decide. So cool. Have you been to either of those countries, by the way, South Africa or Thailand?
I've been to Thailand. I've not been to South Africa. I will go to South Africa. I was actually considering the visa, but that'd be after Iceland in a few years. And then also, like, I really want to go back to Italy and Australia because those two places are like home for me. And so, yeah, we'll see. But at least I'm going to vacation there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because just to refresh people's memories, you've lived long-term in, Spain, Australia, and Italy, would you say?
Yeah. So long-term in those three countries. And then I lived in Thailand for a few months and Bali for a few months. And I visa hopped there, which is a whole nother conversation. But before the DNV days, you visa hopped. And I think people still do all the time.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Give us more of your list here.
Yeah, so again, those are up and coming DNVs. You know, the time kind of ranges on how long you can stay there. Another DNV's up and coming, but I put question marks around it, would be Italy, just because like it's going to be kind of fall into this last category of complex DNVs, which means that it's a DNV that a country released, but they didn't really know what they were doing when they released it. They kind of just pushed it through, and then the regulatory bodies and the immigration offices are kind of left to pick up the pieces. And so it's kind of complex and who's eligible and all this stuff and how in practice you file and all of these complexities. So Italy kind of falls into that up and coming, but also complex DNV category. But for good short-term visas, and I also put in brackets the no tax visas, they're only available for 12 months, but it'd be Argentina and France. So it's really unique because they're quite easy to obtain. You get 12 months in the country, and you don't have to file for taxes in that country. You file in your home country because you're getting kind of it's this unique visa category that allows you to stay there for 12 months, but it won't require you to file for taxes, which usually if you're staying longer than 180 days in a country, it requires you to file for taxes. So they're nice if you're kind of wanting a more short-term, option. You're not looking for long-term residency anywhere. You're not looking for a path to citizenship, but you're just kind of looking for an extended vacation abroad for a year to absolutely beautiful countries. I don't think I have to say much about France. And I feel like, there's more awareness of Argentina these days of how beautiful that is.
Yeah.
Patagonia and all that stuff down there, Buenos Aires and all this stuff.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I spent 3.5 months there in 2006 or something. Oh man. What a lovely place. Lovely people, amazing nature, great food. Just had one of the best times of my life. It was beautiful.
Yeah, I'm jealous because so I said that South Africa's on my bucket list. The other one is Argentina, probably are the two most that I really want to go to. In those continents as well, South America and Africa. I think those are the only two that I'm really like, I want to go there. In those continents. So I'm quite jealous. I've only heard amazing things. My dad went fly fishing in Argentina, so I think that's he only had good things to say about it. But yeah, I'm jealous, man.
Yeah, I like that you brought up the no tax visa concept, because that maybe there's some people here that's resonating with big time, depending on how you prioritize. What your income is, how you prioritize taxes over like the experience you want to have. And I mean, let's face it, Argentina and France, it's not like you're going to Siberia or something. No offense, Siberians. For any Siberians listening out there. Yeah. But, it's Argentina and France. So you get to go to one of those places and for 12 months not have to file for taxes. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, and in taxes, it's quite complex, especially when you jump into, the Europe side of things, just because the taxes are a bit more expensive over here, or a bit higher over here. And if you're trying to get into one of these kind of tax regime incentive programs, like there's difficulty there. You're going to need to hire most likely 2 accountants, one in the country in which you're going. And then, if you're a U.S. citizen, unfortunately, you got to file there no matter what. And so it's kind of nice, especially again for U.S. citizens, just because you don't have to deal with the whole going to another country, filing, figuring all of that out. You just file at home all the same, and you're living abroad. So it's a big relief off people's mind, because a lot of the things that when you start diving into these is like, that's one of the first questions that creeps up is like, what am I going to be liable for with taxes?
Yeah. Well, this is why you guys do this for people. okay, the parallel I will use is accounting. Like, I don't want to deal with it with my business. I don't want to learn it, for better or worse. And if I had to do all of that and didn't outsource it, I would still probably have not even started the podcast and things like that. Some things just need to be like, you don't want to not do the things you want to do because you just look into it for a little bit and you're like, oh, this is too complicated. I don't want to deal with it. Get some help if, for whatever. I mean, visas, accounting, whatever your version of that is. Like, don't let the obstacles stop you because there is help out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's so much easier to say, like, what do you need? You need this document? Okay, here you go. You need this? Okay, here you go. Take care of it. Because again, like, you can stress out about it and a visa application is so stressful. Like, it just, from start to finish, it's exhausting, it's tiring. And so if you just outsource it, it's weight off your mind. You have like experts actually do it. And then, another thing to note is that even if you go in and do all the research and figure out everything you need to know, like, the consulates and the people who actually accept those applications change their requirements from day to day, depending on the volume of applications being accepted. So, you might see the minimum requirement in a bank account or a savings account is like 10K or something. But then when you actually go to apply, you don't know that the consulate's not accepting those because it's so, the volume of applications is like flooding the consulate. So they're actually saying, it's actually like 15K.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. Yeah. They could just change it on the fly.
Yeah. I mean, because, any visa can be rejected for any reason. Mm-hmm. They don't have to explain it because it's their country. And so
I had a question around that, Tim. Is it smart to, well, I don't want to limit people because you can apply any time of year, but is there a strategy of applying at the beginning of the year, or is it more like the visas come out at different times, so it doesn't really matter?
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking, there's maybe a strategy depending on the country itself, especially if there's like countries that have like lotteries, and so it's only open for applications at a certain time of the year. But if we're talking like globally, like, no, I mean, every country varies and is different and has different timelines and stuff like that. So,
all right, what else you got?
So good medium term visas, and meaning, 12 to 24 months. And I'm kind of trying to do like two. So I'm not just focusing on like Europe, for example, which is seemingly like everyone wants to go to Europe. So I could just focus on that. I feel like people would be happy, but good medium term visas would be Malaysia and Malta. And these are going to be visas that are going to be more entrepreneurial. So, it's not always going to be, maybe you're not wanting to go and travel and visit and enjoy the lifestyle as much. You're kind of wanting like a startup community or something like that. You're focused kind of on, your early career. These are probably going to be good locations for you. You get 12 to 24 months, and then you have to find another visa category if you want to continue to stay. But that's kind of, again, why it's geared towards those entrepreneurs and stuff like that, because maybe you found another company or you've started something and you can kind of switch to a business visa or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. Have you been to either of those places?
No. So I have not. For Malta, we were actually going to relocate there. I think I told you this at some point, maybe. For Citizen Remote, we were going to headquarters there, but it didn't end up working out. We had a founder go there and travel there and network with the people we were chatting with. I didn't end up going, but he said good things about it. It's a huge destination or vacation destination in the middle of the Mediterranean. It's part of the EU, so for Malta, there's all those things to look forward to. Small island, so island life. And then Malaysia, I've only heard good things about. But again, it's going to be Southeast Asia. I've heard it's very entrepreneurial as well. So from the conversations I've had.
Cool. I like how you're framing these. So 12 to 24 months, more of a startup, maybe perhaps environment you could put yourself into. Medium term, you call it Malaysia and Malta. Got it.
Yep.
What else?
So long-term DNVs, and I kind of threw 3 down here because they all are set up and geared for, over those 2 years, kind of a pathway to citizenship. And there's 3. So I think I've gone over your 7 now, but
no, that's okay. You're not limited. Let's just give people this awesome content. This stuff's great.
Perfect. So it's Portugal, Mexico, and Greece. And I think that those are really good ones because they offer clear pathways to citizenship, long-term residency. So you can go there, you can set up a bank account, you can already, get long-term accommodations. Not all of these you can immediately set up a bank account with. Most of them you can, but accommodations, no problem. But Portugal, after 5 years, you can get citizenship. Greece is a little bit longer, but you have the option to continue to extend, assuming that you still have your remote job and are eligible. Every 2 years. Mexico, I think it's like 5 as well. And so all these countries, if it's something that you want to relocate to, find dual citizenship in one way or another, really set up long-term in another country, then you can kind of, focus on countries like this.
Wow. Okay. That's another thing to point out, I think. If you are listening and you're in a, let's say you work for yourself or you work for somebody and you feel like this is going to be something that's going to be going on, for some years, 5 years, this might dramatically change your choice because you couldn't, if you're like, and I want to have an abroad experience, you could invest those 5 years anywhere. You could spread it out and try different countries and have that experience, or you could invest in one of these countries in a path to citizenship, which of course is not guaranteed because they can change the rules and that sort of thing happens. But you could set yourself up if you were happy with, I love Mexico or Portugal or Greece, whatever, knowing you're working towards this other thing in the background, kind of this path to citizenship. That's a pretty powerful lens through which to see these visas and to see where your life might go. Because once you get that, I always joke with people because I'm a dual citizen now. I'm a Norwegian citizen. And I tell Norwegians that. I'm like, you can't kick me out now. You can't kick me out now. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe they can, actually. They're probably listening to this and be like, you know what? This guy's getting a little cocky. I think we're going to kick him out. But there is something powerful about having the dual citizenship. It was always a dream of mine. It's just another option, right? If wherever you're based is not working for you or it all goes to hell in some ways. Again, that might sound like paranoid or something, but you never know. Like, it's always nice to have another option, right?
Well, and you got like 32 now or whatever the EU count is because being, wait, no, you're not in the EU, are you? Norway.
No, Norway's not part of the EU, but we have agreements, so we could move somewhere in the EU
quite easily. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say the main thing with like Portugal and Greece, the beauty of it is if you do stick it out for those 5 years, or I think Greece is a little bit longer.
Stick it out. We're using air quotes, right? Because
exactly.
It's like, this is horrible. I'm in Portugal. Oh no, the lifestyle is just terrible.
It's too sunny and the beaches. Yeah.
I can't stand this delicious coffee and pasta donatas every day. This is awful.
Yeah. I mean, Europe's in your backyard, and you can then relocate to, Germany, to France, to, anywhere in the EU. And so a lot of people, I'll hear conversations where they're like, I want to move to Greece to then move to Spain or something. It's like, well, you can't really obtain a digital nomad visa. And it's not like it's the US. It's not like you can move to California and then just hop over to Nevada or something like that. It's their countries. And so once you get a visa for that country, you have to live in that country. You can float around that country, but you can't all of a sudden get a Spain visa and then go to Portugal and live in Portugal. You can visit it, but
you're moving there.
Yeah, exactly. But when you get that dual citizenship, if you stick it out, air quotes, then you can do that. And that's such a unique benefit, and for the rest of your life. So then you can move to any country in the EU as much as you want. So,
yeah, great point. All right, do you have another category, or was that the full?
That was pretty much it. The last one that I kind of briefly talked on was the complexity in V's, which is Spain and Italy. So, but that's pretty much, if you're a U.S. citizen, you can't be a W-2. They did allow it for like 2 weeks and then they didn't. And it's pretty much just ever changing. And so, just be cautious with those. I would absolutely hire a professional. Doesn't have to be a citizen remote. Would love it if it is, but absolutely hire someone if you're going to like Italy or Spain, being UK or US, just because those visas change all the time. When I talked about that, the minimum income in a bank account changing, like those are the countries that kind of do that. just depending on the week and depending on the volume. And so you kind of need someone whose fingers on the pulse, as you mentioned earlier, to know how that's changing that week. So I guess that was the only other one.
Cool. So yeah, and I didn't realize, I must have missed, Spain is part of the part of the complex visa situation. So we've got 11, man. That's a great list. You got the up and coming. Let's recap really quickly. South Africa and Thailand. Then you have the complex ones, Italy and Spain. You have the short-term, no tax visas, Argentina and France. And then you have the, you have the, here's the medium term, right? You have Malaysia and Malta. And then the long-term, Portugal, Mexico, and Greece. 11 by my count. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Amazing list, man. Amazing list of places to live as well. So, I mean, let's talk about your upcoming move to Iceland. How did you... Yeah, Iceland wasn't on the list. Let's say people are listening and they're like, all those countries are amazing, but I want to live in Iceland, or I want to live in Norway, or I want to live in one of those that is not listed. What would be your advice for people to go about seeing if that's a possibility?
So, I think that there's always going to be a possibility if you're wealthy enough. So if you have, a bunch of money, then that's, easy. Any country will allow some multimillionaire to relocate there. If not, another likely pathway pretty much anywhere is going to be some student visa. That's how I'm relocating to Iceland. I'm getting my master's there.
Is that limited to age?
It's kind of limited to, your education. If you've already gone to school and you want to get a second degree, then you can do that. I mean, at any age, really. So it's just whether you're, like for me, I had to make sure when I applied for Iceland that I had, a certain level of my GPA or whatever it's called, grade point average, to be eligible for the visa. And that's just for any master's program, though. So, I mean, like, I could have probably gone if I didn't want to get a master's, I probably could have gone to school in Iceland and gotten some other degree that wouldn't have been a master's, and I wouldn't have had to worry about my grade point average or anything like that. So it's not really limited as long as you're, of college age. And then I think you're fine. So it's not like if you're a 50-year-old and you want to go to school, they're not going to let you. They'll let you. Yeah. So.
Dang.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, and I'd probably recommend going that route. Iceland does have a digital nomad visa, but I think the minimum income, it's only 6 months, and I think over 8K of income a month. So it's quite a high hurdle for most people. But
that's a good example of, you don't have to limit yourself to this list. Like, everybody's listening, they're in a different situation. So feel free to, of course, you can dive in on your website or just Google around or whatever to see what might be an option for you. But again, at the heart of this conversation, I think, is just to get people excited about what might be possible for them for the coming year and beyond, and where they might be able to have like a wonderful experience living abroad for a period of time. Yeah, I love how you broke these down in categories, and everybody's going to have to, I think, first look at what's the most important value for them, if you want to call it a value. Is it the tax-free thing? Is it a certain period of time? You're like, I only want to live somewhere for 12 months. I just want to take a year. That's an experience. I want a path to citizenship. All these questions, that's going to help narrow your search and narrow your research into, you're just going to get more laser focused on like, okay, well, there's only so many countries that offer a path to citizenship. Let's look at those. Let me decide which one suits my lifestyle best, and let me go for that. Instead of just kind of fumbling around, because we're travelers. I mean, it's so easy to just dream and be like, I want to live here. I want to live everywhere. I want to have I want to split myself into like 193, versions of me and live in every country and, whatever. But, we can't do that. We got this one life. So,
yeah. And I guess if I could give any advice, and I think that this is more difficult for some people than others. For me, it's quite easy. It's be flexible in where you want to go, and kind of let the visas that you're eligible for dictate where you're going to go. Like, I wouldn't have gone to Australia if I couldn't have gotten a visa. I wouldn't be living now in Spain if I couldn't get a visa. And it was just one of those things that, like, there were probably, I don't know, 5 different visas, whether it comes to my initial move abroad or, my move to Spain, which I was eligible for. And I just kind of was like, well, this one sounds the best out of those 5. I'm eligible for all those. I wasn't eligible for 193 visas. I was eligible for 5 at those points in my life. And then in terms of moving to Iceland, I wanted to go somewhere in Scandinavia and get a master's. And so I kind of just was like, Iceland, so I think be flexible and figure out where you want to go and see what you're eligible for. And if you can do that, then, global mobility, kind of this relocation long-term, it's going to be easy. But if you're really hyper focused on one, then you're like, I don't want to go to anyone. I might not even be that eligible, but I'm going to do it anyways. Then you might struggle. So I think, just be flexible and every country has its own beauties. So I think, and find out what those are and enjoy what they are and take a chance, roll the dice.
So well said. Every country has its own beauty within the people, within the country itself. It's so true. I love that. I know we're sort of getting to the end here and we've covered the list, but I'm curious now to hear some advice around the actual process of moving. And we're going to take you as a case study, Tim, because you're going to Iceland. I know you're going to take a break, then you're going to go home for a little bit, back to your home country for a month, and then you're going to go and start this new life in Iceland. And I'm just wondering, having started a new life in, a few different countries and things like that, what is your best advice for that? Do you have certain things that you like to do where you get somewhere in terms of getting settled in, connecting with the local community, kind of getting your feet under your ground, let's say somebody gets one of these visas next year and now here you are, you're getting off the plane and you're showing up and you're going to be in this place for the next 12 to 24 months. What have you done personally that you feel like, oh, when I do these things, it works pretty well for me and I feel like I can sort of settle in a nice way?
Yeah. Well, first off, I'd say don't be attached to the material items and meaning bring one suitcase, maybe 2. Get rid of everything that you're attached to. Unfortunately, bring the stuff that you need to work, bring the clothes that you can put on your back. And then otherwise, try to be light because you can get everything in another country if you want. But I think a lot of people are like, well, how do I bring all my stuff over there? No, get rid of all your stuff. So I think that's kind of the first thing. And then the second thing is, when you relocate to another country, what do you like to do in the country that you're at now? Do you like to go out to bars and meet people? Do you like to go play intramural sports or join a league? Or do you like to, I don't know, play in the chess club? What are the interests of people? Do you like to go to church? Stuff like that. And then go to the new country and find that group, do exactly what you're doing. And chances are you're probably going to start meeting people and, getting that friend group and figuring out what there is to do. And then just kind of let, the locals advise you on where to go and what to do and what you should see and, the hidden gems of the place. And it'll happen. How if you went to a new school or if you moved to a new town, it's the same thing. Obviously there might be a language barrier that you have to deal with, but I think that in terms of kind of relocation, it kind of comes back to being flexible and just allowing the dominoes to fall in front of you and enjoying that experience.
Yeah, that's great advice. When you have an advantage as a foreigner, when you have that sort of genuine, open curiosity about wanting to connect with a place and its people and really, you're meeting people and you're like, oh, where should I go? All the questions you're kind of talking about, what should I do? What's cool? People they want to help. They want to take you under their wing. They want to give you their best advice. It doesn't, you have to filter it to an extent, depending on who you're talking to. But the point is that open curiosity and sort of that willingness to kind of just learn and try to ingratiate yourself, people really appreciate it. And I mean, you could think about it in reverse, right? If you were home and you met a foreigner and they were like, oh, I really want to, have the best burrito and I want to learn about what it's like to live here. You would want to help them, it's just human nature.
Chipotle.
It feels good. So it's, just be that person in reverse,
Yeah.
And be that person if you can at home right now. I mean, that's always a nice gift to give people. So for you, you mentioned getting into some of the hobbies and kind of connecting with us. Great way to connect with locals, of course. What is that for you? What's that going to look like for you when you land? What are you into?
So, well, for me, I usually just go to a bar, and it's the easiest way to kind of talk to people. Or I'll go to, like, whether it be the beach or something. God, that's a good question, actually. Like, I'm trying to think what I did in Australia. Well, Australia was different because I lived in a hostel for the first, like, 2 months. So when you live in a hostel, you have to meet. You're forced to meet people. You're living with other people, so that's easy to make friends there. When I went to Spain, it was a bit different because I had a girlfriend at the time. And so we didn't get out as much, but, we'd go to bars and meet people, and we made friends from there. And it kind of just, they had stuff to do. So then we'd meet other friends, and it's kind of that snowball effect. And I think, it just depends. I got invited to, like, some sand volleyball leagues and stuff, and I did that, and I met more people. So, I mean, like, how do you meet friends at home? It's probably going to be something similar, and just keep a smile on your face, be nice to people, understand that, people do things differently. And if you can do that, then, I think people will enjoy, the foreigner of the group, and you just keep smiling and they'll like you.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, a lot of this advice translates to moving to another city in your own home country, of course, but there is something about being from outside of a country. I think, people they're excited to help you out. It can help to, if you're wanting to acquire some things for your apartment or whatever, like you said, you're getting rid of stuff, but just on a practical side of things, Americans are very familiar with Craigslist. There's like a Craigslist for every country, right? In Norway here, it's Finn, and they have some high quality stuff you can get used and things like that. So there's some small practical things, like you can just find the sort of the classified ad app of the country. And then they have a lot of stuff on there too, places where you can buy stuff, or, even meetups and things like that, depending on the app. So that can be helpful. I mean, since you used your own company to get your Iceland visa, and we could just give you an opportunity here to plug Citizen Remote one more time and let people know what that process would look like if they choose to go with you to get one of these visas.
Yeah. So if you're interested in kind of this relocation journey, whether it be a student visa to, a retirement visa to a digital nomad visa, chances are we can help you, assuming we have a legal team in that country. And we have, I think, 33 different countries right now that we offer. So most of the major ones, everyone we've talked about, plus 23 others. And so the process is quite simple. You'd go on to citizenremote.com. You'd take that quiz I was referring to, so we can kind of determine your eligibility and get a little bit more information about your situation, what it is that you're looking to do specifically, and how we can help. And then if you're kind of focused on one country, then we can introduce you to our team in that country. If you're kind of just wanting to navigate still, then you can do that kind of all within our platform. You can also schedule a call with me if that's something you're interested in, and I can kind of help you dive into what we've pretty much talked about in this episode. And then, from there, you'll kind of start that process. If you're interested, we can introduce you to a tax team as well. We can introduce you to accommodation options in that country, insurance if you need it, which most of these visas are going to require it. And it's kind of all done within the Citizen Remote platform. So you go into our website, you'll get launched into our app, and from there there's a document exchange portal, payment portal, everything. It's all done within one system. So it's kind of nice and easy in terms of relocation to know that you just got to manage one little area, and we handle the rest.
I will set up a link for you all in the show notes, and we'll make sure that we redirect that to you guys. I think, we'll see if we can get you guys a discount or something if you decide to go with Citizen Remote. I like Tim a lot. I like what you guys are doing over there, and you've been doing it for a while, and I see the vision, and I think I think you're doing a great job with it and helping people. Ultimately helping people get out and live this lifestyle. I had two last questions. One is, do you think that people should apply for more than one at once? Is that a strategy, or is it better to just go kind of one at a time? Okay, I got rejected, move on to the next one. Because I don't know how long the process is. I mean, it varies from country to country, but it would stink to, spend 10 months trying to get a visa and then get rejected, and then you start the process all over again for another place. But then again, this is the world we live in. So what's your best advice to somebody who's, the lead time? What's kind of What should people do?
Most visas shouldn't take 10 months. If you're planning 10 months ahead, then that's one thing. But I guess another thing to note is that, while any visa can get rejected for any reason, if you're eligible and you don't have a criminal record, chances are you're going to be fine, assuming that you do everything appropriately, which is kind of the point in hiring a professional. I personally would never apply for more than one visa because it's costly, it's slightly time consuming. And I guess just be prepared that if, the worst thing happens, then, there is a potential for rejection. But also when you hire, someone like us, you can always argue or resubmit that visa or ask why or figure out, what the issue was with the submission. I don't know. I don't think that happens. From my understanding, we haven't had that issue. So that's kind of beneficial there. But again, it's make sure you do it right the first time and make sure you're eligible. And again, make sure you're more than eligible, not just like bare minimum. Because again, I mean, if it's me, I've never applied for more than one visa. I probably wouldn't recommend it. But if it's something that like, in real estate, if you're a stressed seller, then maybe you need to. If you're really trying to get out and this is your deadline and your accommodations up in your your home and you're leaving, then maybe you want to just throw it all out to a bunch of different ones. But it's not something I'd personally do.
Okay. And do you have a philosophy, quote, some kind of phrase, anything you're living by nowadays that's helping you out that you lean on that you want to share?
I'll have a few actually. There's always two that kind of come to my mind. I don't know how good they are, but they are kind of the way I live my life. One of them, which is it's not very insightful, but it's one that I live by. It's just gotta send it. It's a YouTube video, Larry the Enticer. It's a funny video, but I've been actually living that since like high school, I think. And it's
just gotta send it.
Just gotta send it, and it's a funny. I think he's like Canadian.
Well, what does that mean to you? What does that do to motivate you?
So for me, it's pretty much just like dive into what you're gonna do, no matter what it is, like full force, and don't worry about. You should think about it a little bit, but don't worry about the repercussions. Don't be like half in, half out. Like if you're gonna do it, and just be happy with it. That's the decision you made. Kind of like the road not taken by Robert Frost. You can sit there your whole life and worry about what you could have done or all that, but just don't waste your time with that. Do it. And so then that kind of follows up with the second quote that I live by, which is it is what it is. And like, so you just got to do it. You got to go full in, and then, whatever happens, it is what it is, so don't live in the past and just kind of enjoy the moment. And if you can nail those two things, then life's pretty fun in my experience.
Love it, man. Love it. My mom always shared this quote, and it always stuck with me. Speaking of the past, she said, you can look at the past, but don't stare at it. I think that's a good one. That reminds me of like, okay, yeah, we need to kind of just, it's part of us, but doesn't have to define us in a way. So, well, cool, man. Thank you so much for your time today and for breaking this down in such an elegant way, Tim, as you always do. Yeah, I should mention you have a podcast as well, or I don't know if that's still going out, but
so I assume that when I go to Iceland, I'll get some more episodes out. But it's kind of one of those things that a season comes out when it does, and when it doesn't, it doesn't. I guess it goes back to it is what it is. I mean, it is still something that I'm interested in releasing new episodes, but again, I'm quite busy with everything else. So
sure,
when season 4 comes out, it comes out.
Stay in touch. Good luck with your move to Iceland. Yeah, look forward to having you back on a future episode at some point, man. Thanks for your time.
Absolutely, Jason. It was a pleasure, and you'll have to come visit me up there, man. It'll be a good time.
Will do. Got to show me around.
Heck yeah. Cheers.
All right, buddy. Take care. There you have it. Special thanks once again to Tim Marting for stopping by the show, helping us kick off Travel Trends Month here on the pod. Trying to keep you ahead of the curve for the coming year. We've got some fun episodes coming your way, so be sure to follow the pod if you haven't. And I can always send you the latest episodes over at zerototravel.com/newsletter. If you sign up for our free newsletter, you always get the latest episodes there right in your inbox, so you don't forget, and you can see what's coming, see if it's going to help you add more travel into your life, which is what we're all about here on the Zero to Travel pod. Thanks for being a part of this community. And as a part of this, I will remind you, this is a community-powered show. Please get in touch, share your story, just say hi, let me know what's up. I love to hear from listeners, and I love to give shout-outs to listeners, and I've got one to share with you today from Ben, who said in an email, I took a career break many years ago and never looked back. I left a great corporate job after 6 years at the age of 24 and went traveling to Europe, which was meant to be 2 years, turned into nearly 6. Fast forward to now, I'm 48, but look back with amazing memories from my 20s and those 5 to 6 years abroad. I lived, worked, and traveled, working at rock festivals, ski resorts, and general odd jobs. I had a blast, traveled to Europe, traveled to the States and South America, before an accident in Chile to my girlfriend, who is now my wife, cut it all short, but that's another story. We still love traveling, took our 13 and 11-year-old sons to the States last year, and next year we're off to Indonesia, where we will be volunteering at a special needs school teaching English. We can't wait. I also run marathons all over the world, which allows me to travel. New York, Boston, Tokyo. My next one will be in Berlin. Can't wait. Anyway, just wanted to say thanks. On many of my long runs, I listen to your interviews and reminisce a lot. Like I said, we have some amazing memories from our travels, over 20 years ago. So to hear both old and young travelers on your podcast is brilliant. Keep up the great work, Ben. Thank you, Ben, for the kind words. And I mentioned at the top, I found this shout out to be inspirational and practical, because it seems to me, at least within my sphere, the encounters that I've had doing over 1,000 podcast episodes, conversations with travelers as a nomad for many years. And I can't think of a person that I met that really ever regretted choosing travel. Like, I'm trying to think of even one person that was like, I wish I didn't take that career break and live abroad or travel the world. Now, granted, that doesn't mean there aren't challenges or that people haven't had some tough things happened, have had sicknesses. Again, it's not all rainbows and unicorns. That's why we're doing a podcast, because we have the deeper conversations. You all listen, you hear the stories. You're travelers, you know this. But it's worth remembering when it comes to these big decisions, you can always project in your future self and think about you 3 years from now or 5 years from now. You come out of a time portal and you're talking to yourself. Are you like, great job, I'm so glad you made that decision? Or is your future self like, dude, what were you thinking? Like, why didn't you take those steps? Like, we could have been doing this other thing and now we're on this path because you didn't take any action. I don't know what your future self is saying. I think about this stuff a lot because it's important. It's so easy to get caught up in the daily sort of grind things. And sometimes you got to take a, step back and think, okay, we don't have to be like super planners, but if we're thinking 2 or 3 years from now, what would our future self say to us? Sorry, I'm stumbling over my words a lot today. It's that cold. Will they be grateful for the decisions we're making now? Or will they be angry at us for either not taking decisions or not choosing certain paths or whatever? So anyway, this listener shout out isn't meant to say, go do your career break or whatever it is you want to do. I don't know what your situation is. And that's why I'm going to wrap this up with a quote that I think will sum all of this up. But I do think it is important sometimes to take a step back and think, we don't have to think 20 years down the road. You can think 2 or 3, Where is it? Are we kind of generally on the path we want to be on? Just worth mentioning, I think. And to wrap it up, I'm going to leave you with this quote from Earl Nightingale, who said, "Never give up on a dream just because of the time it will take to accomplish it. The time will pass anyway." Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time. Peace and love to you and yours. Cheers.
This podcast has been brought to you by ZeroToTravel.com. Ideas and advice to make your travel dreams a reality.